Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be showing you the best makeup for humidity or humidity-proof makeup. I'm not sure what I'm calling this yet, but basically I wanted to show you a makeup look that is super appropriate for the summertime or these hot, humid months, or if you're just going to a climate that is really hot and humid as well. But I wanted to show you a look that was more glam, that's more meant for the evening time. If you want to see a no makeup humidity-proof look, let me know as well and I can film that. But I wanted this to be super in-depth where I'm showing you each step and how to apply makeup for the heat and humidity to make sure that you get the most long-lasting makeup that also looks natural and beautiful in person, that's just going to wear beautifully all day long. I just think that these types of looks and showing you step-by-step in-depth is very important. So if you want to see how to get humidity-proof makeup that is perfect for the summertime, that's very long wearing all day long, then just keep watching. I've already gone ahead and used an eye primer. So the eye primer that I really like is the Rare Beauty one, but with an eye primer in general, you're just gonna wanna use a very, very thin layer of it. The key when it comes to humidity-proof makeup is less is more. So you wanna go in with those thin layers, and this is a long wearing primer. It does work well for my dry eyes, so I have great longevity with this. And in the humidity, you might want to set down that eye primer just with a little bit of a translucent powder. Totally up to you, but you can just take any translucent powder and just set your eyes just to really ensure that that eye primer is locked down, because the key, again, with humidity-proof makeup is that we want to use liquid products that have great longevity to them, but then we want to set them down with powder. So you'll notice that a lot in this video. When it comes to eyebrows, I just went in with this Kosas Air Brow Gel. I do recommend going in with a brow gel first because gels tend to have the best longevity. So you might want to use something with a tint to it. And then you can go in with a pencil if you do need to fill in your brows. Obviously, you want to go for a Longwear pencil. You don't want to use a pencil that is easily smudgeable. You want one that really locks down, like the Dior pencil would be a really great option. And to really lock things in place afterwards, you're going to want to use a clear brow gel, something like the Anastasia Beverly Hills Clear Brow Gel. This is a really great clear brow gel that will absolutely lock your brows in place all day long. Moving on to the eyes. The key, again, for humidity-proof makeup is we want to go in with a Longwear kind of gel product, because gels have the tendency to be that really creamy application and then they set down. So I'm gonna note a few options. This Sisley, this is the Ombre Eclat Liquid Eyeshadow in the shade 2 Copper, is a really great option. I also love the Bobbi Brown and the Laura Mercier eyeshadow sticks. These are really great too. These I prefer in their little shimmer shades. And I also really like the Vive Eye Wand. I like the shade Camel. It's really great. This is a matte shade, so if you're someone that prefers matte shades, these are a great option. And I really also like the By Terry Ombre Black Star. My favorite shade is the shade, I think this is number 22, Sunny Flash. Really great one. It's a nice and long wearing as well. So with these products, they just come in these little stick applicators and you apply them to the eyes, and then you just blend out. So we want to use an eyeshadow stick that sets down. That is very, very important. So again, like the Laura Mercier or the Bobbi Brown, I am going to take the Bobbi Brown. This is the the Longwear Cream Shadow Stick in the shade Golden Amber. So again, these are waterproof eye crayons. So what I like to do is I like to apply all over the lid, and these seriously do not crease, they do not budge, they do not move, but they're very blendable. So you have enough time to work with them when you apply on the eyes. You can just apply on the lid and then blend out the edges. So you do have time to work with these products before they set down. And I would work one eye at a time because they do set down, but they just don't set down too quickly. But once they are set down onto the skin, they're going to not budge all day long. So just applying to the lid and then blending out the edges into the crease. Again, less is more in these sort of looks, so you're just going to want to work with a little bit of product and blend out the edges. And I think that when you are applying makeup for the humidity, again, you're going to want to go for more of those one and done eyeshadow looks, because you don't want to apply like 5 different eyeshadows, because if there is a little bit of smudging or fading, it's going to be way more noticeable when you're using more eyeshadows on your eyes. So really go with a less is more approach here. I also recommend taking a little bit of the bronzer that you are going to use on your face and just applying that a little bit in the crease just to tie the full look together. So I'm just going to take the bronzer that I'm going to use all over my face. Apply that in the crease softly just to blend out any edges. You also have the option of layering a powder eyeshadow over top of that cream eyeshadow. This will really ensure that that eyeshadow is locked completely into place. So you're going to want to use a similar color that you've applied on the lid. So that was kind of a golden bronze shade. And I'm just going to take this NARS palette that I have been loving. I'm going to take this sandy brown shade, and I'm just going to use my fingertips to make it super easy. And I'm going to apply that just over the lid, just to really set down that shade and ensure that I get no fading or anything throughout the day. I'm also going to take a little bit of that shade as well and just run it along the lower lash line. Now you could alternatively use that same crayon on the lower lash line, but I don't mind if my lower lash line kind of fades a little bit throughout the day. That's something that just doesn't bug me. And then when it comes to eyeliner, you're going to want to be super careful when it comes to eyeliner. You do not want to use any sort of kohl's because those will absolutely smudge and they will fade away very fast in the heat and humidity. The only type of eyeliner I would recommend is, again, a gel-based product. So these are the Hourglass Eyeliner Gel Waterproof. So because these are these gel-based products, they are more waterproof. They do set down versus those kohl's that are more smudgy and blendable. So kohl eyeliner or a gel eyeliner is very important because, again, they set. Now with an eyeliner, because you are applying an eyeliner to an area that is wet, like your eyes, they obviously produce tears and they just have moisture to them. You will get a little bit of transfer. That's just inevitable. There's not going to be a product that is 100% transfer resistant, but this is as close as it comes. And yes, it will fade like a tiny, tiny bit, but you can just put this in your bag. And it is definitely the most non-transferable product that you can find in an eyeliner. So if you're going to wear an eyeliner, ensure that it is a gel-based product, one that claims to be waterproof and that sets down. Once you apply this to your top lash line specifically, it won't fade, it won't transfer at all. But if you are applying this to your waterline or your tight line, again, you might notice just a tiny bit of fading. But for me, this is kind of the best option. So I'm going to apply this Hourglass pencil. I would prefer the shade, actually I have it right here, the shade Cave, which is a brown shade, which again is just nice and soft, so I think that's a good option. And I'm just going to not apply it to my top lash line, I'm going to apply it to my tight line. So kind of in between the lashes, and this will make my lashes look thicker. And it'll just ensure that there's not an awkward gap from my mascara to my lash line. And then if you do decide to use this gel eyeliner on your top lash line, like if you just wanted to line your lash line, you can also set that down with a powder, like a brown powder that is in that similar color story like I mentioned. So you can use this product and then just take any brown eyeshadow that you have and just set down that eyeliner to, again, ensure that it is locked completely into place. For mascara, I use the Chanel. This is the Volume and Care Lash Primer, the La Base Mascara. And I topped it with the Gucci mascara. This is the Obscura mascara in the shade Black. So while I love the YSL Lash Clash in the shade Brown, that one is not completely humidity proof. It will transfer a little bit. So the Gucci mascara I have found, especially when I layer it with the Chanel primer underneath, the Chanel primer will just help with the longevity of any mascara. It will help with the length and volume as well. It just offers a little bit of conditioning. And this Gucci mascara is completely transfer proof on me. It does not smudge or flake in the humidity as well. So I really like this mascara for that purpose. You just wanted to find something long wearing. Another great option is the MAC Extended Play Mascara. I'm going to move on to the skin. So I've already applied my skincare. It has soaked into my skin for about 20 minutes. In the heat and humidity, when I'm going for that humidity proof look, I really want to let my skincare kind of settle and set onto my skin, because you want the least amount of moisture on your skin when you are working on your foundation. You want to ensure that there is the least amount of oil on your face when you go in with your foundation. So I'm going to take one of these Tatcha. These are the Blotting, the Japanese beauty papers. They're basically a blotting paper. You could also just use a Kleenex and just kind of tear it apart. So you just have that one side of the Kleenex, and you can also use those. and I'm going to get all the excess oil that is on my face. But this is just going to ensure that there is no excess oil on your skin, and it will make your makeup last so much longer when you just dab that oil off before you go in with foundation. A primer that I would recommend in the heat and humidity is like the Sisley Double Tenseur, because that is a gel-based product. Again, you can tell that a lot of these products that I'm mentioning are gel-based products. So that is a gel primer, and it has this consistency where it offers this really nice moisturization, but it's not too hydrating on the skin, and it does set down. So if you have oily skin, this will be a really nice option because it's going to give you that hydration, but it's going to be locked down onto the skin. And what it does, it's this really unique property where it makes your makeup basically adhere to your skin. It almost like makes your makeup stick to the skin. It's a slightly tacky product. So another great primer would be like the Milk Makeup Primer. That one is a really great option if you want something that is a little bit more affordable. Again, I don't have that in my collection right now because I have gone through that. I just didn't repurchase it. But if you are someone that notices that maybe your makeup fades away throughout the day, or it separates a little bit, if you're someone that just foundation does not stick to your skin, those are great primers because they will really, really help with the longevity. I actually just remembered that I ordered something from Sisley and I got a sample of the Double Tenseur. So it is the instant and long-term primer. I'll just go ahead and apply that so you can kind of see what I mean. So I'll just use a little bit of that primer. They actually give you a decent sized sample in there. And I'm just going to apply it all over the skin. So it adds, like I said, it feels very comfortable. It feels like a gel-based moisturizer, but as you blend it into the skin, you'll notice that it starts feeling almost tacky. Like it almost gets harder to blend into the skin. You can feel a little bit of a tack, which will just make sure your makeup just adheres onto your skin really nicely. Now for foundations in the heat and humidity, a lot of the times I feel like in the summer we have the tendency to reach for like tinted moisturizers and really light coverage foundations. The problem with those in the heat and humidity is that a lot of them are not long-wearing products. So they're going to maybe start fading away, or they're going to become extremely oily on the skin. They're going to just look too dewy on the skin because a lot of tinted moisturizers are more marketed as a lighter coverage with a more glowy finish. So we want to avoid that. So I would recommend using a product like, if you want a light coverage, this Chanel Water Fresh tint, the Le Beige Water Fresh tint, is going to be the product that you must have in the heat and humidity. But these are basically pigment beads in this gel consistency. So again, a gel-based product. This is a water-based product, so it is going to kind of set down onto the skin. These water-based products are very, very good in the heat and humidity. Better than like an oil-based product, that is for sure. Water-based products will be your friend. This, again, is just so great on the skin because it really melts right in, and it does sort of set down onto the skin. I would still powder this down in the very, very hot weather, but this is fantastic because it doesn't fade away. It just lasts very well in the heat and humidity. If you want a little bit more coverage, another good option would be the Chanel Le Beige Water Fresh Complexion Touch. These are virtually the exact same product. This just has less water to it, so it's going to offer you more pigment onto the skin. So it is still in that gel consistency, that gel-based formula. So it is going to set down on the skin as well. It still looks very skin-like, but this is just more of a light to medium coverage, where this is a sheer to light coverage. Beiges is the Dior Capture Totale Super Potent Serum Foundation. For me, I find this humidity-proof because it's really long wearing and it has this serum-like texture, so it almost feels gel-like, I want to say. Now I have drier skin, so this works really well for me if I want that light to medium coverage that is very skin-like. And if you're looking for something with more medium to full coverage, I would recommend the Guerlain Parure Gold. This is the Skin Matte Foundation. These are absolutely beautiful in the heat and humidity because even though it says it's a matte finish, it's not an extremely matte finish. I would say it's more of a velvet finish. You want to actually avoid foundations that have that super duper matte finish because it's just going to look too contrasted in the heat and humidity. If it is so hot and humid out and you're wearing something that is so flat and matte and drying, it's just going to look odd in that environment, if that makes sense. So something that has more of a skin-like finish that does set down is going to be a really great option. And if I'm looking for something full coverage, this Hourglass Ambient Soft Glow Foundation. this is a fantastic option if you're looking for something with a bit more coverage. Now, I would not wear this as a full coverage foundation. The key to using a formula like this that is fuller coverage is that you only use a very, very, very small amount of product. Like I said, less is more. So you want to look for products that dry down on your skin quickly, and this is that sort of product. It will dry down to the skin and it's not going to transfer or melt throughout the day. It is very long wearing. So again, you're going to want to avoid very glowy foundations, but also super duper matte foundations. I find that a velvet kind of finish is the best way to go. And this is just beautiful. But with this Hourglass Ambient Soft Glow Foundation, the key to using a fuller coverage foundation that is long wearing is that you want to use a very slight amount of product. I wouldn't even go in with a full pump. I'd probably use half a pump. And then the key is to just really, really work it into the skin. You want to really buff it into the skin and apply it in a very thin layer so that your skin will still have a thin layer of product, but it is going to look a lot more natural, and it is going to be way more long wearing when you apply it in that sheer layer just buffed into the skin. That is going to wear the best, because then if you do have a little bit of, like, say your foundation just does slightly wear away, it's going to look better when it wears away if you've applied a thin layer of product. If you've applied it as a full coverage foundation and then it does get really hot and humid and say it does fade away in like a patch or something, it's going to be way more noticeable on the skin when that happens versus just applying it in that sheer layer of coverage, if that makes sense. So that gripping primer that I applied, either use the Milk Makeup or that Sisley one, is really going to help grip my foundation over top. One more step that you can take to really lock down that makeup is go in with something like the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. I actually prefer to apply this underneath makeup and after I've applied my foundation. I don't like to apply this over powdered products, but this will really ensure that your makeup lasts all day long, so give it a good shake. And spritz all over the skin. My spritzer is kind of broken, but you basically want to spritz it all over the skin and just let it set down a little bit to kind of fan off your skin. You don't want to apply foundation directly over top while that is wet. I feel like I haven't played with the Hourglass foundation in a very long time, so I will show you how I make this kind of humidity proof. I do prefer to work with a brush because I really want to thin out that consistency, make it as sheer as possible. So I'm going to start with the Hourglass foundation. I wear mine in the shade 7.5, and I'm going to take like a half a pump. So that's probably a little bit too much product, but I'm going to deposit it on my hand, kind of spread it out in a thin layer. I'm going to take my brush. This is the Sonia G Classic Base, and I am going to just pick up the product with this foundation. So I'm going to just deposit that onto the brush. So you can see I'm picking it up in like an even layer so that I don't have too much product in one area. And then I just like to start on the skin. So that setting spray has dried down on my skin, so I'm not working on a wet base or anything, but I'm just applying this. First stippling it in, but then I'm just going to really spread it. So I'm actually pressing down on my skin and spreading that foundation so that I'm applying it all over the skin in a very sheer layer. I don't want too much coverage in any one area. And then when I get to the center of my face and my nose, I actually am going to apply the least amount of product there. So basically once all the product is gone from applying it to my jawline and kind of in that area, then I will go over the front of my cheeks and my nose, because you definitely want the least amount of product on your nose. When it comes to humidity-proof makeup, if you're wearing sunglasses or stuff like that, typically you will notice wearing away of your foundation on your nose first. And also when you wear makeup, the most noticeable area on the skin is your nose. If you apply too much foundation in that area, it will look like makeup. It will just look more heavy. So you want to apply the least amount of product in that area. And I also think the forehead as well, because the forehead can be an area where foundation is quite noticeable. So I like using a brush like this because it is small and I can really ensure that I'm spreading that foundation out onto the skin. It really just is about how you are applying your product that matters the most in these situations. So that's really thinned out onto the skin. And then to finalize things, I like to take a completely damp sponge, and this has no product on it, and I just want to run over everything because now I want to ensure that the product is really pressed into the skin, just to ensure it is really worked in there and that way it is going to wear the best. For concealer, if you are using something like the Water Fresh tint, I recommend just sticking with the same formula and using the Water Fresh Complexion Touch, the Beiges formula, because with water-based products, you want to use like product, so you want to use something water-based, that will work the best. But if you are just using a typical standard foundation, then I would recommend something like the Dior Forever Skin Correct. This is a really nice natural finish. It doesn't lean too glowy or too matte. It's that perfect in between. And same with the Givenchy Prisme Libre Skin Caring Glow Concealer. This is a great option as well. And finally, the Chanel Sublimage Le Correcteur, the Radiance Generated Concealing Eye Care. This is fantastic as well because it is, again, that gel-based product, so it is going to last really well in the heat and humidity. I'm going to take the Givenchy today just because this has kind of been my favorite concealer and I just feel like it's the easiest to use. So we want a concealer that dries down and doesn't look too glowy or luminous on the skin, but we don't want something completely matte because, again, when it's too drying on the under eyes, it can just look odd in that hot and humid environment. So we will kind of want that natural finish, but one that does set down, and we want to ensure that it is a lightweight fluid consistency because we don't want anything heavy on the under eyes. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of product just right here. Again, less is more with concealer as well, so just applying it there. And then I also like to apply in that lifting effect on the outer corner of my eye, just to ensure my eyes look nice and lifted. And blending my concealer in with a sponge is my preference. You can obviously take a brush and really blend it into the under eye region, but I just think I get the most perfected, kind of blurred finish when I use a beauty sponge. And just pressing it, really pressing it into the skin. And if you did have the option to just pick one product and you're someone with just really beautiful skin, just using a concealer, so you can just completely skip the foundation step. If you just use a concealer on your under eyes and in any areas on your face, that is actually going to probably wear the best because you're just going to have a thin amount of product on specific areas of your face and not all over. So I'm going to use a little bit of a cream bronzer, and the best bronzer I have found is this new formulated Chanel Le Beige Healthy Glow Bronzing Cream. This is the Soleil Tan Medium Bronze shade, the shade 392. I prefer the shade 390, but I have a little bit of a self-tan on. I really enjoy this because this is, again, a gel-based bronzer. So you want to avoid a super creamy cream bronzer, and I think we have the tendency to want to apply cream bronzers or cream products in the summertime, but the problem with that is if you don't choose the right consistency, you will just have product that looks completely oily and it will fade away and it will separate and it will look greasy and it will look terrible after a few hours. So this is a really unique cream product because it almost is a drier texture for a cream because it is, again, that gel based. And because it is that gel base, it sets down into the skin. It is almost a cream to powder product, which is really great option for humidity-proof makeup. So I'm going to take, this is the same brush that I used for my foundation. I have just cleaned it off. This is the Sonia G Classic Base. I'm going to apply a little bit onto the brush, but then I always tap that excess product off because, again, you want to ensure that you're going in with a thin layer of product. This new formula from Chanel is the one I would choose because the old formula has coconut oil in it, and you're going to want to avoid something with coconut oil in the heat and humidity because it probably will get a little bit too greasy looking. I find that this formula is a little bit more matte on the skin, I guess you could say. It's not a drying matte formula, but it just never looks greasy and it's just so beautiful. Very skin-like. So again, since we wanted that thin layer of product, you're always making sure to go in with a little bit of product at a time. Less is more because we want everything to look really skin-like in the heat and humidity. And of course, I'm using this, I'm applying my makeup as if I'm going to like a party in the heat and humidity. I feel like there's two different looks. If you want to see like a no makeup humidity proof makeup, let me know and I can film that look as well. When you apply a thin layer of product, it is going to be so much more long lasting than just applying a lot of product at once. Yes, you're going to probably apply your makeup quicker when you're just applying a lot of product at once, but it's going to be way more long lasting and look better in person when you just work in very thin layers with a small amount of product at a time. And I'm just kind of showing you all the options. You could always just stick with completely cream products, or you could just use completely powder products, but I just want to show you everything that I would recommend for the most humidity-proof makeup look. when we are thinking of cream blushes, again, we want to avoid products that are too dewy. Something like Westman Atelier, do not use those for humidity-proof makeup. They will just be too glowy. You want to use something that's more of a liquid or gel consistency. Like I mentioned, you want a gel-based product because those will last the best in the heat and humidity. So this Chanel Les Beiges Water Fresh blush, again, pick anything from the Water Fresh line. This will be extremely long-lasting. This is the shade Intense Coral, again, water-based product. I forgot to mention other products for the cream bronzer, but something like the Chanel Les Beiges Water Fresh tint in the shade Deep. So this is just a deeper option in the Water Fresh tint. Great option for the cream bronzer. Or using something like the Rare Beauty. This is the bronzer stick. This is a really great option as well. This is extremely long lasting. It's very long lasting on my dry skin. Very easy to blend, but it isn't too creamy. It does set down for me. And then something like the Chanel, this is the anti-aging face tint. This is a really great option as well because it just offers a sheer tint of color. But I do find the Chanel Les Beiges bronzer is more long lasting in the heat than the Chanel one. This one just fades a little bit and gets a little bit more glowy. It doesn't get greasy, but I just find the Chanel lasts a little bit longer. And then when it comes to cream or liquid blushes, I also recommend the LYS. This is the Higher Standard Satin Matte Cream Blush because, again, this kind of dries down to that matte finish. It is incredibly long lasting and it is not too creamy of a cream blush. And this Rare Beauty, this is the, I don't even want to know what they're called because I guess the name is not on this, but this is basically the gel-based blush. So this is like a liquid blush. It has that gel formula. So this has a slightly bit of a dewy finish just because it is in a cream/liquid blush, but it's not too glowy. It's not going to look greasy and it does dry down onto the skin. So these types of products I actually would not recommend for beginners. I'm just going to apply a little bit to the palm of my hand just because they do dry down on the skin, which means they're going to be a little bit harder to work with if you are a beginner especially. I'm just going to pick that up on this Sonia G. This is the mini base. Really get that worked into the brush because I want to ensure that the product is evenly distributed on this brush before I apply it onto my skin so that I get an even amount of pigment on my skin. But again, these aren't great for beginners because they are just highly pigmented and they dry down, so you do have to work with them quite quickly. But the formula of these are absolutely beautiful. They're very skin-like products. Like it just looks like my cheeks are blushing. And did I say the shade? This is the shade Happy. And it is just beautiful. So I'm just pressing. Again, you notice with all these products, I'm really pressing them into the skin. I'm not buffing and moving them around like that because that can actually remove product underneath or it can lift up dry patches. It just doesn't look the best on your skin. So I'm pressing this into the skin so it really adheres to my skin. And that way I'm going to have the most long-lasting base. Again, like I've stated with everything, less is more here. We're working with just a small amount of product and really working that into the skin because we want it to still look skin-like. Now moving on to the powder products, I'm going to set the under eyes. For me, I think it's very important to set the under eyes when you are going for, I guess, this more glam look in the heat and humidity, just because you want to ensure that nothing creases or fades away. But to ensure that you get a really smooth look, take a Q-tip and dab. If you see any excess product, you want to get rid of that excess product before you set that concealer in place. So I find this works really well when you are setting the under eyes. So I'm basically just getting rid of all the little creases or any product that has settled into any fine lines. Just get rid of that excess product so that you want to just avoid any excess product in any areas. And then I'm going to blend out that area once more because you want to ensure everything is smooth and crease-free before you set that down because once it's set, you can't get rid of those creases. I'm going to take the Rodeo Glass Powder. I find this really great. You take a little bit of that powder onto your sponge and you get all that excess product off because I don't want to apply too much product. Again, we want to work in those thin layers of product. And then I'm just going to press that underneath the eyes. But I'm not bringing it all the way up to my lash line because there's just little creases there and I don't want that powder to settle in there. Now for powder products, it's pretty basic. I would just choose any powder product that kind of speaks to you. You want to work with something, I wouldn't say completely matte again because if you use something completely matte, it kind of looks a little bit out of place. But if you wanted a more matte bronzer, the Hermes, this is the Healthy Glow Mineral Powder in the shade Atlas, is my favorite kind of matte bronzer. And for something with a little bit of a sheen, this is the Sisley Phyto Touch Sun Glow Bronzing Gel Powder. Again, this is a gel to powder. I'm going to use the Refer 22. You do need a dense brush to pick up this sort of product because it is a baked powder, so it is very hard to pick up. So you're going to want to use something a little bit more dense. So you pick up a bit of product, get that excess off. But I really like a gel-based bronzing powder, specifically because this is going to be that powder to cream formula. So this sort of product really melts into the skin and it looks extremely skin-like, which I think, again, is very important in the heat and humidity because you want your skin to still look like skin. And these sort of products are incredibly long-lasting. Once you apply them onto the skin, there's just something about a gel-based product that is extremely, extremely long wearing. So again, just going in with that sheer amount of product just to set down that cream product. When you do set down that cream bronzer, it is going to be a little bit more long wearing as well, but just use a little bit of product. And same goes for the blush. So my favorite blushes are something like the Gucci blushes, very, very long wearing. This is the Cheeks and Eye Powder. I also love the Valentino blushes. The shade number 9 is beautiful, and also the shade number 2. So I would go with either one of these because these are the most long-wearing blushes. The Gucci is more of a typical powder formula, while the Valentino is more of that powder to cream formula. So to stay in kind of with that Sisley product that's kind of similar, I'm going to take the Valentino. This is the Blush and Shadow in the shade number 9, which is Poudre, I believe. I'm taking that on a Sonia G Cheek Pro. So I literally just pick up one dab, literally dab your brush in once, get all that excess product off, and then I'm going to set down that cream blush on the skin. And I'm just working back and forth. So again, that's just such a small amount of product to set that cream product down. And as you can see, I'm still pressing these products into the skin, not buffing or sweeping or anything. And to finish off the eyes, I'm just gonna take that Sisley bronzer and apply that to the lower lash line, just to complete the look. Now when it comes to mascara on the lower lash line for heat and humidity, I would just say avoid it unless you have a waterproof mascara, just because with your lower lashes, it does tend to touch the skin under here, and you will inevitably get a little bit of transfer when it is very hot and humid outside. So I would just avoid lower lash mascara if you can. If you just are someone that has to have it, again, use something like the MAC Extended Play Mascara or pick a strictly waterproof mascara and apply it there. I'm going to skip it entirely. So now let's talk about powder. So before I powder the skin, I'm going to take another tissue paper and I'm going to ensure that there is no oil on my skin. You are going to have a little bit, especially if it's super hot outside. So getting rid of all that oil before you set down it with powder will ensure that you get a cake-free makeup look, essentially. Because unfortunately, when you apply powder onto the skin when it is a little bit oily or damp or anything like that, that is when you start noticing caking or heaviness on the skin. So when it's really hot, you want to avoid that. So just go in with a blotting paper first, or again, take that piece of Kleenex. You could use that alternatively. And I'm going to go in with a translucent powder that is really great at blurring pores, and it's just a very thin powder, so it's not going to add coverage or texture to the skin. It's just going to blur my skin out. If you have oily skin, I recommend setting your skin with something like this Beauty Blender Puff, because that is going to ensure you really get that product pressed into the skin. If you're someone like me with dry skin, just go in with a small brush, something like the Sonia G Face Pro, which is fluffy. You can just press it onto your skin. Or something I really prefer as well is using something like this Wayne Goss brush. I don't know the name of this, O2 brush. And again, just being very strategic in where you apply powder, just in very specific areas, especially if you're someone in the heat and humidity that needs to touch up your product. Now let's talk about touching up your product in the heat and humidity. You're going to want to avoid it as long as you can, so try not to. If you are someone that needs to touch up your powder, maybe don't apply powder right away when you finish your makeup. Wait until you're heading out the door or something like that. Then go in with your blotting paper and then powder the skin. That way you can get away with powdering less often. And again, if you do need to powder your skin, bring a powder with you to take along, but bring your blotting papers and blot before you powder your skin. Because if you just apply powder over something that looks oily, you are going to get caking, especially if you already have powder on your skin. That is why people's makeup looks heavy and cakey, especially in heat and humidity. So you're going to want to take these products with you. Now, just to set my skin down, and again, I want the thinnest amount of product on my skin. I want less is more. I'm going to take this on this Wayne Goss brush, pick up a little bit of product, dab off the excess, and I'm only going to press it in the center of my face, right where I have pores here, the middle of my chin, down the center of my nose, and center of my face, and that is it. And then if I do need a little bit more powder later, it's not going to look heavy or cakey at all. When it comes to highlight, I personally would skip highlight if it's really hot and humid out, just because, again, it will just look a little bit odd when you're so glowy and then you also have this highlight on your skin. But if you are to choose a highlighter, I personally would recommend a powder product, because with creams, they just have the tendency to be a little bit too creamy. So I would recommend a powder formula. And again, I would recommend a gel-based product, because these are more of that big gelée. So they have that consistency where they apply like a powder, but they melt into the skin and they look as if you've applied a cream product. They're very skin-like. So using something like this Tom Ford Reflex Gilt Highlighting Duo would be great. I also love the Tom Ford Nude Light Duo. It is like buried in my top drawer thing over here, so I can't pull it out. But I would just recommend using a product like this. So maybe I'll just show you. I'm just going to dip in mostly to that top shade, just a little bit, get that excess off. And I am just going to apply it to the high points of the cheekbones. And then that is it. And then for the lips, honestly with the lips, you could kind of do whatever you want, because the lips are the easiest thing to touch up. I would just recommend, again, staying away from completely matte formulas, because they're just not going to, even if it's something that's very long lasting, they just don't look the best after like 6 hours if something's very matte and long wearing. I would do something that's like a typical lipstick formula. I probably wouldn't do like a straight up lip gloss, because that just would look too glossy. Sometimes that's just too shiny when it's super, super hot out. So I'd do something like a sheer satin lipstick, something like this Merit Signature Lightweight Lipstick in the shade Baby is my favorite. Or using a product like the Chanel, these are the Rouge Coco Bombs. This would be a great product, because this is basically like a lip balm consistency. And it is almost like, it feels a little bit more dry than one of those, like an actual lip balm. So I think that would be a great option. So I'm just applying this Merit lipstick all over the lips. Again, this is a great option because it's a lipstick formula, but it is more on the sheer side. So it's not going to be too opaque or full coverage, which I want to avoid on my lips. And it's going to give me a nice shine, but it's not going to be too shiny. And then, as always, with all the products like I mentioned, we're going to really blend that into the lips, so that it's not sitting on top of my lips. It kind of just is giving me color. But that is it for this best makeup for humidity. I hope you enjoyed this very in-depth video. Please let me know your favorite humidity-proof makeup products down below. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you like it, and I'll see you in my next video.